as time went on, poor Godred got smaller and smaller, till nothing was left. What happened? Asked Duncan anxiously. It's not nice to talk about, said Culdee. But what happened? Why isn't it nice? Our drivers used Godred's parts to mend us, answered Culdee mournfully. Sir Handel and Duncan were unusually silent, long after Culdee had gone home. Neither Skarloey nor Renias ever mentioned that Culdee had made the story up.
What you just heard was the ending to Bad Lookout, one of, if not my favorite Railway series stories to ever exist. It's here we learn about Godred and his unfortunate accident. It's also here, however, that we deal with a topic that's a bit heavy for Thomas and Friends, and that is the topic of death. This isn't unheard of in Thomas and Friends, and if you take scrap engines into account, it's pretty common. Though normally these scrap engines are just side pieces, we don't know their story, we don't know their character, or really much about them. Only that Thomas and Friends exist in a world where death is possible. It's pretty unlikely we'd ever see anything like that happen though. Then we get to the Railway series story Bad Lookout, which not only deals with death, but puts it on a silver platter for you to view. When Culdee tells the story of how Godred not only fell down a mountain, but was cannibalized for parts. The story itself is a bit more strange, however. The entire thing is told in great detail, like it's something that actually happened. But then at the end, it's claimed that this was all made up by Culdee. So which one is it? Did Godred actually fall off a mountain? Is the story just made up? Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what we're looking to answer. Did Culdee just make up the Godred story? Well, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with why that ending tidbit was likely added in the first place. Now, the Railway series is a very mature canon of Thomas and Friends. These were stories not only for kids, but also for the parents who had to read them to their kids repeatedly. And for that reason, Audrey would do his best to add a bit more substance into every story, something that everyone could appreciate. Most parents likely wouldn't favor explaining that a character just died to their kid, however. So this ends up not only giving Audrey an out, but potential parents who may have just accidentally scarred their children. There's still many lingering questions, however. Like, if Culdee made it up, why did he go into such detail? That kinda seems hard to come up with on the spot. And if this isn't what happened to Godred, then what did? Past this point, he is never referenced again in Mountain Engines. It's only natural to assume something happened, but we never get a direct answer on what exactly did. For this, we have to turn to the TOS book, which not only confirms the accident, but also adds a new layer to the mystery. It was written that it's generally believed that what caused Godred's accident was a single stone, which had worked its way between the teeth of the rack rail system. However, it also states this was never proven, and neither Wilbert or Christopher would ever confirm such. Again, we're left with knowing something happened to Godred, but not what. What we do know is Audrey took a great deal of inspiration from Snowdon when making these stories. Basically, the exact same thing happened with their number one, a locomotive named Lattice. If we take only this and how seriously Audrey took inspiration into account, it only makes sense that this story holds up. So basically, the narrator at the end is a liar, or at the very least leaves us readers with quite a few options. One being that Culdee actually made this up and none of this actually happened, which sadly is unconfirmed by the TOS book. So instead we're left with the narrator either pulling our leg or something in the story being lied about. And personally, I'd have to say it's probably the latter. Let me explain. Apparently, just like Godred, Lattice would fall down a mountain and because of financial reasons not be repaired. Instead, what parts were left were put towards other engines. Maybe Culdee was telling the truth about what happened to Godred, but perhaps not with him. He still fell down the mountain and was too expensive to repair, but perhaps wasn't cannibalized and instead scrapped, making the narrator not a liar. But this opens up another question. Why would Culdee throw that in if it's not true? For this, we go back to the story's beginning, when Duncan first arrived to the yards.
Renias and Skarloey were talking quietly to Culdee next morning when Duncan stormed up, followed by Sir Handel. "Hello," chuckled Renias. "Here we go." "I nearly came off," fumed Duncan. "Those coaches pushed me. The thing controller says they didn't. He says I'd kept a bad lookout. We've no money to mend you, he said. And if it happens again, I'll leave you at the back of the shed. Why does he always pick on me?
It's to drive home a point to Duncan. One, that his controller isn't just picking on him, but two, that his actions can have serious consequences. Perhaps this wasn't a writing error, but something that required just a bit more thought. And with that thought, this entire story takes on a whole new meaning. Or at least I'd like to think. This is just my opinion after all, so be sure to take what I've said with a grain of salt. I'd just like to think this goes a bit deeper than a small error. And given the options presented, that just might be the case.
Either subscribe, donate, or get the fuck out.